Happy New Year, my friends. It's your old pal, PeaceLoveMusic, coming at you live on DeOrganized Media in partnership with our good friends over at Bitcoin Live Decentralized Broadcasting. And it is 9 p.m. We got 3 hours left in the year. We're expecting some friends to join us soon and have some conversations about where things have gone. But here we are, another year, and what a year it's been. You know, it's been really crazy. From the whirlwind that started back in January before we had ETF approval, and was all this speculation, but we kind of knew it was coming. And boy did it. You know, for Bitcoin, we had the first ever pre-halving new all-time high. And that was really cool. And actually, we have our first visitor, and how apropos. It's our awesome friend Nick from Bitcoin Live. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. I just celebrated the new year in Holland. It's actually 3:00 in the morning. So I'm way past bedtime.
So you're in the future.
I'm in the future. I'm gonna tell you about how 2025 looks, and I can see green candles all the way of the horizon.
Sounds good. I think we'll have some. I do think we'll have some. We'll have some waves, right? But I do think it'll be an up year overall. I think that my prediction is we will end 2025 above 100K. That's an easy call to probably.
Steve, if we don't do that, I will be severely disappointed.
Yeah, I think most people would be very disappointed. There are at least most people that would be watching our shows. We're I'm cautiously optimistic it'll be significantly higher than then. Although based on how the cycles tend to go, we could be at this time next year, we could be facing, we could be past the peak based on prior cycles.
Yeah. You got different schools of thought, right? I mean, Dave the Wave. I like Dave the Wave, and his theory is that these peaks, they flatten out, right? So we get less and less highs and less lows. But you also got different kind of schools, right? Some schools like Samson Mao, but also Plan B and many others, even Michael Saylor. They predict much higher, right? I mean, it could be also a super cycle. So you got, you got, that's one extreme. I don't know.
It could be. So there's absolutely, the law of diminishing returns. It's also is also the law of diminishing corrections, right? It's the same. So if it's not going to have the same volatility up, it won't have the same volatility down. So it should peak less over time, but I think the more it goes, the more it has to actually correct at some point. Get back to the mean. It just has to. So
agree.
It's all healthy. Like even like what we're experiencing right now, where we were in extreme greed, and you can't be there for that long. You just can't. It has to, the fear and greed index. We were in extreme greed. It was way over for a while, and it felt great. When Bitcoin was up 100 and way over 100,000, and it looked like it might hold 100K for a little while. But this is actually healthy that it's ticked back down, and it's only still in the 90s. It's still in the 90s.
But but I think, like you said, like this is a healthy correction. It's probably a bull flag. So I think after the inauguration, especially if it sort of goes without hiccups and there's no surprises, I think we might actually go. The next leg up might actually be around the corner. This is not financial advice, but
I definitely think we're going to have, yes, and always, again, not financial advice. We are just, friendly neighborhood.
Spitballing.
Yeah, we're not financial advisors. But I do think that, I do think that we haven't reached the peak yet. No, I don't think
No.
that is.
I hope not.
No, I think we're going conservatively. I think we're probably going. We're destined for 180. I think with upside there. No, I think it'll happen quick.
So do you want to hear a story?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I think about a month ago, I did a bet with a friend of mine. And he's actually also in finance, but he's in traditional finance. And I got him into crypto and Bitcoin, and now and then we reconnect. And then he sort of asked me about the lay of the lands in crypto land, and so, but he likes bets. So he asked me, okay, Nick. So what's the worst case and what's the best case, and where do you see Bitcoin in 2025? So we bet a really good whiskey, about $100 worth of whiskey, a Scotch, of course. It's the best whiskey.
Good stuff.
And he said, so first he wanted me to say something, and then I said, okay, what do you think? So he said, okay, I don't know exactly, but let's say 250. So I said, okay, that, for me, that's kind of conservative, but I think it's more likely to be over 300. And then we agreed to 275. And if it's over 275, I get a good whiskey from him. And if it's under 275 next year, I owe him a good whiskey. But that's the bet.
If it's close to, if it's 250 plus, I mean, that's fantastic, right? That's a fantastic world. If we still if Bitcoin doubles from here still in this cycle, and I do think that. So it's possible, right? Because it's undeniable you have institutional adoption now. I mean, you're really starting to see it where all of a sudden any major company is going to start having some of it on its balance sheet. It has to. It's going to have to. And so you're right, it could be a super cycle. It could go bananas. But
so I know Plan B got a lot of flack. He's actually Dutch.
I didn't know that, but I'm familiar.
But within his theory, within his model, it never broke his model, right? The only thing that happened last cycle was that it was it was sort of bouncing at the bottom of his model. So I think, and I think it was what's his name? There was this other very famous influencer. God, what's his name? No, it doesn't matter. But he said, and I agree, that I think governments were really suppressing the price of Bitcoin.
Governments and banks.
Yeah. So So let's say that's true. Let's say he was right, and that governments last cycle really suppressed the price of Bitcoin, which I tend to believe. I don't have any proof of that, but I felt that was the case. So, but it was still within the range, within the model of Plan B. So if that is the case, if that was the case, then what you say with the mean, like, oscillating between, the range of the, you want to go, you're oscillating first below the mean, and then you sort of oscillate above the mean. And I mean the mean, sort of the is that the right English term? Yeah, I think the mean is
the middle line.
Yeah, the middle line. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the middle line.
The 20-moving average is usually
So if you're suppressing it below the average, then it could very well be the case that right now we're about to, oscillate above the average because we have been suppressed below the average for so long. I think that's actually genuinely a possibility, especially when you consider the case that nation states are adopting Bitcoin, that many companies are front-running other companies to, allocating towards Bitcoin, and that you see the allocation towards Bitcoin is ramping up. It used to be, 1% was sort of, what you and me would be very happy about, but it's already, Larry Fink is already talking about 5 to 10%. And Larry Fink is turning from sort of like a cautiously cheerleading to, he's pulling out the pom-poms, right? He's
all in. He's all in.
He's all in, and he's saying, like, I also like the underlying technology, and he's like he's us, like he's cheerleading. And I'm not a big fan of Larry Fink. Actually, to be honest, I hate the guy, and I hate everything that BlackRock stands for. It's my personal opinion. I'm not saying that's
No, I understand what you're saying. It's still good to recognize that if you're a fan of Bitcoin and you want Bitcoin to succeed, that him being in favor of Bitcoin is good for Bitcoin. Him being a cheerleader and champion of Bitcoin. I understand the concerns.
Yeah.
But if Bitcoin is all that it's cracked up to be, those concerns really don't. It doesn't matter how much. The more of the supply that they try to hoard, the more valuable my Bitcoin becomes.
Yeah, I do. I actually, so today a lot of people were sort of asking for predictions for 2025. My prediction for 2025 is, even though we had a really nice sort of political, sort of that because of the push for Bitcoin adoption, was very successful. Lots of states are now, thinking or actually implementing a Bitcoin reserve, and also on the federal state, they're implementing a Bitcoin reserve probably, as soon as Trump is inaugurated. And personally, I'm a Bitcoin fan, so I'm very enthusiastic about all of that. But if you're not a Bitcoin holder, if you're a no-coiner, or if you're misinformed, or if you're not allocated towards Bitcoin, my prediction for 2025 is that there will be a huge political backlash against Bitcoin and Bitcoin holders, because they will be painted as extreme capitalist people that don't care about others and that are all only about wealth extraction. And so I'm
well, of course
I'm really worried about that.
Well, but those people aren't. I appreciate the concern, but I think that the media apparatus with which such a propaganda campaign will be waged has really kind of given up a lot of its own capital.
True.
You know, it's not. They haven't really. They've damaged their reputation to the point where they're not effective at driving. As long as there are alternatives growing, like we are actually part of that, right? We're creating alternatives to that paradigm.
True, that's true. But on the other hand, right, you have to recognize that from their perspective, these rising paradigms, these new alternative media that are rising, they are their nemesis, right? So they will pull everything they got in order to paint us black, and they still have a lot of clout, and they are gonna go ballistic. You know, they're gonna go insane, and they are gonna put all their power in order to say, like, okay, this is sort of the nexus of Bitcoin, AI, Elon Musk, Trump, Peter Thiel, Palantir, right? All the stuff that people have been ingrained to hate these past 10 to 20 years. Everything that's sort of, you know, it's like a red spot for a bull to rage at. You know, I don't know. It's a Dutch saying, but
right.
You know, they will put a bull's you know, mark. You know,
bullseye.
Yeah.
Right, a bullseye or a red flag is what we call it.
Yeah. Sorry, that's where my Dutch is failing me. Yeah.
I understood what you meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, it's almost like it's being set up to be opposed.
Yeah.
And you know, it definitely seems to be. So if I were in a position of power and control, I would feel the need to, hey, GPSC, what's up, brother? Happy New Year. If I were in a position of power and control to the extent that I was influencing policy on that kind of a level, what's up, brother?
Okay.
I would plan things out that way, right? You would kind of have that kind of a strategy, a long-term strategy, a years-long strategy to facilitate your agenda.
Yes.
How are you, GP?
Doing good. Happy New Year's, everybody. I mean, yeah, Nick, Peace, what's up, dude? Like, what were we conversating about tonight?
We were just talking about the landscape around Bitcoin and what's going on with the establishment, what we think we could see for price action for the end of the year. So I'm going to ask everyone that comes on tonight this question, and I think we'll probably have largely the same thoughts. End of 2025, Bitcoin over 100K, under 100K.
End of 2025, over 100K, definitely over.
So right now, it's
I don't think that just because we're seeing a minor, it's going to be a higher low, and we're going to see a higher Bitcoin. Yeah, it's. I think that this is like a short-lived rally in the dollar. You know, the dollar has been pumping. I just think it's short term, man. It's just a little pullback before the new year, before Trump gets into office, and policies start to change, and we start to see what the crypto regulation landscape actually looks like, for the first time, and actually maybe get some new laws and get some clarity. So, yeah, definitely thinking higher Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Can I add to that? Because there's this really great interview with Michael Howell. And Michael Howell is the guy who's all about liquidity, right? So he's sort of the liquidity guru. And I haven't watched the entire interview, but I think I got the gist of it. And that we're changing, the paradigm is changing, right? We're going from weak money to strong money. And if Trump actually goes into strong money, with adopting a Bitcoin standard and a Bitcoin reserve, going the El Salvadorian road, completely changes the whole landscape, right? Because then Europe is kind of screwed if they stick to weak money, because that means like gigantic inflation. Because if you're using weak money in a strong money environment, you're basically committing suicide. And then on top of that, you got the BRICS who are producing, divorcing from the consumer sides. So the consumers are without producers, so that causes inflation, and the producers are without consumers, so that causes deflation on their end. But if you're on top of that, if you're also if you're sticking to the weak money, the fiat money, in comparison to strong money, then it's like a double suicide mission that you're on. So, but I think Trump, if Trump actually does what he says,
I lost Nick's Nick, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
Now I can.
Sorry. So if Trump, if Trump sticks to his national reserve or his strategic reserve or however you want to call it, that means that that a strong dollar, if the dollar is rising, it could actually mean that Bitcoin goes up.
Right.
It's not often.
Yeah.
It could happen. Bitcoin could still go up with a strong dollar, just because it depends on what the dollar could be strong against all other currencies, but still lose value against Bitcoin.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the new paradigm, right? If you go to a strong dollar, or if you go to a strong money environment and they adopt the Bitcoin standard implicitly, then you can actually have a strong dollar and strong Bitcoin and strong gold and silver.
Well, because if they adopt Bitcoin and use it to continue to further establish the US dollar hegemony as the main reserve currency, then it's basically the best of both worlds for people that use the dollar regularly, actually, and Bitcoin.
Yeah. And that's why I think there will be a huge political backlash against Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin rises in conjunction with the dollar, then the opposition will paint Bitcoin as a usurper, which I understand, even though it's misinformed and kind of sad, right? Because Bitcoin could be exactly what these people actually need and want, but they simply don't know. They simply don't understand what Bitcoin really is. But they will be abused. These people, the people who are misinformed, the no-coiners, they will be abused and misdirected by political forces. I think against Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that there is going to be. the truth of it is, most people are hoping. Most people, even if they don't really have a lot of Bitcoin, they're hoping for something.
Yeah.
You know, they're hoping some new paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So the only people that are going to come out against Bitcoin are those that are part of the establishment that see it as a threat to their rule, their order.
Yeah, but those people
rejected. They've
but
already been largely rejected by the populace.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think a lot of people in the populace are still. I'm talking about Europe. I can't speak for America, but if I'm talking for Europe, there's a lot of people who actually listen to mainstream media and who take their, who sort of copy paste their thinking along these issues, because they have no idea about finance and about Bitcoin, about monetary issues. They have absolutely no clue. So they take their marching orders from mainstream media.
Yeah, what's up, Michael? We got Michael Attract Funding Jagdeo in the house. What's up, man?
Hi, peace be with you. What's going on, Nick? How's it going?
Nice to finally meet you in the show.
Yeah. What's going on, GPSC? What's
Doing
going on
all
over
right,
there?
man. Doing all right. I was having some connectivity issues and neighbors doing firework issues for a second, but doing all right, man. How's things over there?
Nice.
Are people making noise on your end of the world over there in Canada?
No, it's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
It's kind of quiet. You guys were talking about Memetic says opinions. Nick, people copy pasting what they hear on late night TV and serving it up as original thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big worry of mine. I've been very, the mainstream media has been. I find it endlessly interesting to see how normal people, how their ideas and thoughts are sort of. How they appear original to themselves, but they are actually sort of prefabricated by mainstream media and talking points. I mean, you even see it in books. I love reading, and one of the things that I really notice is how when certain things happen, there are like 2 or 3 books that sort of appear around the same time that sort of predate the event that is about to happen. You saw it, for example, with COVID. You had like 2 or 3 or 4 books about pandemics that came out just before COVID. But you often see that, and Henry Kissinger also puts out these books, and I call it narrative warfare. And they sort of try to frame issues so that you sort of, when you're intelligent and you read books, and then you get sort of framed in these issues, but you don't think outside of these issues. I mean, outside of the books, they present sort of the framework to think about these issues, but then you don't realize that there's actually a framework outside of these books that they don't offer you.
Weinstein talked about this. He called it an emotional conjugation, where he said, sorry, take the construction president, strongman, dictator. As words, president, strongman, and dictator can refer to the same person. But what we do when we choose these words is smuggle in the emotional judgment without the person reading ever perceiving that there's opinion being foisted upon people.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something that because I know some really nice people that are super smart, but they read lots of books, and read lots newspapers and opinion pieces and whatever. But then, they don't look beyond that. I mean, they don't really form their own opinion. They form their opinion by regurgitating or preformed opinions from other people. So, and then these people they hold in high regard, and because they are in high regard, and people like Henry Kissinger or whatever, they think, oh, they must know so much more than I do. They must have studied this issue endlessly or whatever. And so,
it's not
who am I?
It's also that there's been this kind of constant move towards establishment authority, opinions, and all of that. So,
absolutely.
So people just see that newspaper as being an authority on what's true and what's right.
Yep.
And so it's easy for them to just absorb those opinions without questioning them, because they see that why would the newspaper is not lying to me.
No, I wouldn't put it like that. I wouldn't say that they don't question it, but question it within the framework that is presented to them. So they do question it, but they are presented with a couple of points that they are allowed to dissent on, and within that framework they are allowed to dissent, but not outside of that framework.
I will say this though, and I learned this from creating AI agents. If you ask people to tell you what their doctrine is, they have no idea what you're talking about. And if you were to define the word, they would still be hard pressed to tell you why they have the positions they have.
Almost 100% across the board, actually. That's a tough question to ask for anyone to answer, because most people don't ever have an opportunity to even consider that.
Yeah, consider it. In creating the agents, I was like, okay, so I guess we should put the 10 Commandments somewhere. You know what I mean? Okay, that's part of like my doctrine of stemming from where I grew up, and it's not a doctrine I chose, by the way. I didn't author the doctrine that I've espoused. I didn't just fall off a coconut tree.
No, but isn't that also why they just why they destroyed humanities, right? Because if you had allowed the humanities to thrive and to sort of fulfill their role within society, as in previous university studies, when you sort of got your degree, you go through the humanities, you got philosophy, you got linguistics, you got a lot of different subjects, history, like genuine history, and that sort of formed your opinion about many of these issues, and they completely destroyed these.
They don't just form your opinion; they help you actually. A lot of those things, they help you actually learn to think of why did I come to these conclusions? How did I come to these conclusions? To question your own doctrine.
Yep.
And they don't want you to be able to do that, because then you can question theirs.
Yep.
It's funny because I find that to a certain extent, my technical skills bring me to a ceiling. And beyond that ceiling is my understanding of classics and history, and you know what I mean? Like wars and conflicts and all of this stuff. It becomes really important as you move away from technical issues to understand really the classics. It sounds kind of like old man, whatever.
White man.
But those classics are classics for... Oh, that's right. Because to teach that, it is enforcing the Caucasian patriarchy, isn't it?
Yep.
Right? That's the argument against it. That these doctrines are allowing certain races to dictate the frameworks, I guess. I think that's the
They're
opinion people
tainted,
say.
they're corrupt, they preserve
They're colonistic.
Yeah.
Colonizers.
Yep.
A lot of my friends talk to me about that stuff, and they expect me to agree with them because I have this skin color. Does that make sense? And I have to like dance around it a bit.
Here's the thing. That's an excuse for marginalizing those things, because there's an agenda beyond that, obviously. Because Socrates wasn't, learning philosophy isn't actually going to lead one to be, typically, if you're studied in philosophy, you're not going to be racist. Because it's not logical. It's illogical. Your skin tone or your race doesn't really dictate much about you. Philosophically, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense to be.
I would say the only real diversity is the diversity of opinion. I mean, I agree with Jonathan Haidt on that point. And Haidt with H-A-I-D-D-T.
Height. Yeah.
So and all the other diversity sort of follows from a diversity of opinion, right? So if you really want true diversity, also of skin color and also of gender and also of any other diversity that you want, the only real way to achieve that is like the diversity of opinion, where people debate each other on arguments, on logic, on merit, and then all those other diversities that you wish for will follow suit, right? But if you sort of stifle and constrict diversity of opinion, and you artificially enforce the other kinds of diversity, of color or gender or whatever, it sort of falls apart, right? It sort of eats itself, and it eventually implodes. And that's what we're seeing all around us. And the only way to keep that going is to create some kind of evil, bad person, and that is,
But there's no logical reason to force diversity for the sake of diversity.
Well, yes, unless that's your agenda.
Right, but the agenda there is actually, there's another agenda there.
Yeah.
Well, diversity is modern affirmative action, right? Would you say?
There's nothing wrong with diversity.
No.
Pushing diversity for diversity's sake when it's not the most efficient, the most effective, the best person for the job is stupid.
Thinking that if you just put a bunch of people with different skin colors and implying that somehow leads you to diversity of thought is not.
Well, that too.
That's not doing anything.
Or genders, or
thoughtfulness, or
heights,
whatever.
Or nationalities. Like, it really doesn't. None of those things actually will.
No, but
diversity is great.
No.
Diversity of opinion helps us understand new ideas and
Adapt,
iterate more ideas. That's nothing wrong with diversity, but it's not the goal. That's not a goal.
The goal is resilience in an environment that's changing constantly.
True.
Right? Through symbiosis.
Right. But from the opposite side, right? If you are like a malevolent group that tries to control things and to centralize things, then diversity is actually, the diversity that they are using at the moment, that's a perfect means to control, right? I mean, it's divide and conquer. It's like the ultimate form of divide and conquer. You can, with intersectionalism, it's like, you can't divide there's no, it's like the ultimate form of divide and conquer. I mean,
well, it also makes it much easier for you to place people that are loyal to you are going to do what you want them to do because you have an excuse beyond them actually being a fit for the job.
Well,
you don't actually have to. You can just place people wherever that are going to do what you want.
Yeah, you can pull their emotional strings, because it's purely emotional. Like, it's very easy to pull their emotional strings. It's very easy to present to them a bad guy or a bad person or a bad group. That's all pre-programmed. You got infinite amounts of money because you control fiat money, and you can print it out of thin air. So you can, give some money to some group to hate another group, and vice versa. I mean, if you want to play divide and conquer, intersectionalism and this whole crap of supposed diversity, which isn't real diversity, is this, it's a piece of, if you have the money to do it, these are the people that are, in China waving their red books, or in Cambodia, killing people with glasses because they're, a sophisticated intelligentsia, or whatever. I really worry about that, because I think that's coming our way, because we will be presented as the bad people, right? We will be presented as the capitalists, the people who don't care about other people, that they only care about money and profit, and
it's going to be hard for them to make that case against me.
Not against you personally, but they won't.
Right.
But they won't make the case against you personally, because they will generalize. They will throw us all on one big heap, and
right. Then we have to be very out front and vocal and present, so that people don't believe it, because it won't be true. And we're not going to be out and present and vocal in the mainstream media channels, even the regular social media channels, because we both know, and now GPSC also has had a taste of the censorship machine.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Will you off for no reason. You don't, and Nick and I both have experiences in the past with that type of thing.
Yep.
It's been a long time, so that's already there. So what we really need, we just got to keep doing what we're doing, right? Keep making content, putting it out there, supporting each other, and being honest actors.
Yeah, I think that's the.
No, it's important.
Go on.
It's like, all right, so going through this has like really made me wake up, because like, there's a few different things. I have to rebuild from scratch, right, when this happened, and then I don't feel like I got a just answer about like, hey, I'm a paying X customer, so you can at least point me to the post where I broke the terms and conditions. But unfortunately, it's on them if they want to do it, because like, I'm sure in the fine print somewhere it says that, like, hey, if you're using the platform, this is what it is. But it sucks, because there really isn't anything you can do. I've seen a couple others that have gone through something similar when they went to go like verify, and then mine was whenever I hosted my first spaces.
Is because of all of the scammers that are constantly spamming the shit out of their system, trying to, or the scammers that got blocked and are trying to spam the shit out of their system to get their accounts turned back on. So they just don't have a process in place that's really right to weed through. But most of the
they can all the humans, and now they're using AI instead to come through the messages, and like, it's efficient, but there's
it's efficient but not effective.
There's places, right, exactly. So I know that there's more people that probably got caught in the crossfire whenever they kind of changed the algorithm a little bit and fine tune it. Elon was even posting about it. So I don't know.
you might have good news in a week or so too. You know, something might happen where they figured it out and they realized that they flagged a bunch of accounts by accident. I got hit with a similar type of thing back in January last year, this year, and it sucked because I appealed it. I got a notification saying that I was going to have my account reinstated, and within like an hour or so, and then like 5 or 6 hours later, I was like, this is still not back on. Sent them an email, and then I got that same email you got the saying, after review, like your account's permanently terminated, and kindly go fuck yourself, basically is what they told me. And that was it. I'm not a bad actor. I wasn't really doing anything that should have warranted that. There's no way that I should have. Not doing anything.
Well, in my case, I was very vocal against COVID, so I think that got me fired.
Oh shit! Enemy number one, huh?
Oh, on Facebook, they do not like me. I am not welcome there. I've spent a lot of money.
Purebloods.
I spent a lot of money advertising my.
That's the thing, though. It's like you guys know why you got suspended for, right? And like,
well, I have to guess.
Am I ever gonna do what I got suspended? Oh, it's still okay. That's a guess. All right. So I'll just have to figure out.
I don't know why I got suspended. Yeah, there's a reason that there's a 1 in attract funding, because the attract funding with an I was suspended, and they didn't tell me why. I mean, I can imagine why, because I also, whether it's COVID related or something else, you consciously know when you're pressing post when you're like, this is this many standard deviations outside the Overton window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta have like a 6.
Yeah. It's like, I probably shouldn't have added Elon when I was pushing the node rocks. That was a bad idea.
Sometimes I screenshot the posts that I choose to delete. You ever do that? You're like, just
yeah. If you consciously do it, I know what you're talking about. Well, I really, I vividly remember that period when I got. We got deleted in different moments and different times. But when my Twitter account got deleted, which was almost 10K, it was just before, just after Jack Dorsey stepped down as CEO. And I remember telling my brother, oh shit, that's not good. That's really bad. So I sanitized my whole stream. I was really polite. I didn't post anything about COVID or whatever, but then retroactively, that's my opinion, I think retroactively, after sort of the interim management, they deleted me anyway because of what I said under Jack Dorsey. And then I was super happy when Elon Musk took over, because that's
Well, it was likely at the behest of the U.S. Intelligence establishment.
Well, why do you say that? That's very conspiratorial.
Music do not necessarily. Yeah. The opinions of PeaceLoveMusic do not necessarily represent those of the other members on the panel. Gonna get all of our accounts deleted.
You know what though? It's kind of. It's what happened.
No,
it's what happened. So I don't care. I'm going to talk the truth. I don't care. I'm not worried about. I'm already censored. There, the 50 people watching us right now on New Year's Eve. Great. That's the conversation we're going to have, because the truth.
Did you guys
censored an opinion about a massive forced curfew, a forced home confinement, and a massive orchestration of forced masking that turned out to be completely useless and ineffective for preventing virus spread. It was really good at fucking up the kids.
Dude, it set the kids back 5 years of education.
So bad. And the other side to that, dude, is Why the fuck are we sending our kids to a centralized school 5 days a week when we can do it more effectively from home with less
dare you.
teachers?
Yeah.
How dare I speak?
Don't comment in the chat if you're still a peer.
But
Don't
and
comment.
with Elon Musk, I'm sort of I'm not per se a big fan of him, and because I also worry about his tendencies and his aspirations. But I do sort of recognize that the way Elon Musk is painted within the mainstream media is sort of like the devil incarnate.
Right. I think they think of him like Lex.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
So that sort of discredits everything that you find on Twitter. If it's the Twitter files that sort of exposes the NSA and the intelligence agencies and their manipulative efforts.
Oh, I don't know anything about that. How does that work?
So yeah, but it sort of pre-discredits anything you can present to people outside of. I know many good people, intelligent people, family and friends. But if I share a tweet with them or a post or whatever you call it these days, then they won't even look at it because it's Twitter and it's Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is everything Elon Musk does is bad, and so it doesn't count. It's misinformation, disinformation.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like something that you have to tiptoe around. Like even the friends that I've had for a long time, you still have to tiptoe around them because I find I found this with Trump too, where when I would go to work, everyone around me at work felt completely fine with just trashing him all the time. Completely fine. But if you look at it population-wise, 1 out of every 2 people voted for him.
Yeah.
Right? But at work, I'm in Canada, so maybe it's different in other places of the world. But at work, it felt like, anything to do with the Republicans or Donald Trump was like free to talk about at work as if it was gospel. And I wouldn't say anything. You know what I mean? About, yeah, that's crazy. I can't. Whoa, really? Oh, wow. I can't. Whoa, really? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you would just go through that thing where you wouldn't necessarily agree, but just like let them get it out and have that cathartic moment. Of,
you weren't allowed to actually. So I've never been an actual like Trump supporter per se. Like I there are things about him I don't really care for.
Of course. Yeah.
But you couldn't be critical of Joe Biden in any way without people like inferring or
something
just
about your character.
Right, that there's something wrong with you. You support Donald Trump. You're not all in for Biden because Trump is literal Hitler. They had to use the term. It's so backwards. They've gotten people.
But that goes back to what Nick said about how people parrot what they see on the news. They learned how to talk like that by watching the news. They were emboldened to use those phrases.
You tell when you start talking to somebody that they have a told opinion because they say things.
A told opinion. That's
It's a told opinion. That's a lot of it. They didn't actually come to that opinion. They couldn't actually explain it to you, and if you actually do bother to ask them to try to,
if you do probe,
they lose their mind, and you're the asshole.
Well,
I'm not.
I can highly recommend the book Influence from Robert Cialdini, and he has these 6 points of influence. And they're abusing these 6 points, and it's kind of funny because Robert Cialdini, when he sort of starts his book, he says you can use this information for evil, and you can use it for good. And it's basically the same thing as Machiavelli, because Machiavelli, a lot of people hate Machiavelli because he's been, identified as old Nick.
Right. He's being caricatured.
Old Nick, the devil. The Catholic Church hated Machiavelli, but basically what Machiavelli did, he just lost the power rules he used to subjugate the masses, and he.
Nick, you're breaking up. Your audio's breaking up a little bit.
Probably because I'm talking about Machiavelli, but
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Well,
yeah. It's the Biden supporters.
So
in
anyway,
the chat.
Robert Cialdini, he wrote Influence, and it has 6 points, and you got authority. They're using authority to subjugate the masses. They're using peer pressure or social proof to subjugate the masses. They're using commitment and consistency to subjugate the masses. They're using likeness to subjugate the masses. And then the last two are...
Sorry, what's that? How does likeness work?
Likeness is basically, it's very simple. Yes, similarity. So if, the example that Cialdini uses is the car salesman. So the car, when the car salesman tries to sell you a car, a used car or whatever, he will say, or she will say, I'm just like you. I also play golf, or I also support the Lakers or whatever it is. But they are basically doing the same thing with with saying you are not like Trump because you are like us. You're good people. We all support the same things. We all support. I don't know. I don't know. We separate our trash and whatever it is that they will use to say, like, you're like us and you're not like them, because they're evil people. They're like Neanderthals, and they're backward, and they are.
The othering is a great way to coalesce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's basically us versus them. That's likeness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's likeness in a nutshell. It's us versus them. And then peer pressure is social proof is more or less more of the same. It's people who are sort of in the same peer group who are also brainwashed. And then authority is actually kind of interesting, because from studies it turns out that people who, this is sort of like a side note, but if you wear high shoes, like if you make yourself taller, that actually improves your authority over other people. But even if you're short and you're, like, for example, fast talker, then people will perceive you as taller than you actually are, and that will also improve your authority. So it works both ways. But
the authority, I remember from the Milgram experiment. The experiment must continue. Listening to someone in a white coat without any other evidence whatsoever, right? So authority, I think we have to be humble in recognizing how we are susceptible to authority. Like,
all of us.
At least 85% of the population is very susceptible to authority. Like, all of those Cialdini points.
Even that buck the norm. Even those that buck the norm, still susceptible to authority. Very much.
But just imagine, like, the celebrities, like, just the whole celebrity thing. That, I mean, how incredibly stupid is it that you want to be like Kim Kardashian or whoever? It doesn't matter. Just fill in the blanks. Who cares about what those people are doing and what they're about? And but swaths, hundreds of millions of people care about what Kim Kardashian is eating, what she's doing on a Friday, and
media glorifies her. She's a creation of the media. The media shows you pictures of her house and shows you pictures of her special foods that she's eating, and where
it's almost a recipe for a media construct is what we're pointing at.
Right. Well, that's what it is.
But and just to twist it, the same thing we can say about Michael Saylor, right? Who the fuck cares what Michael Saylor's doing, or Max Kaiser, fill in the blank. We are people in crypto, and we do our own thing. I mean, it's nice that Michael Saylor says nice things about Bitcoin, even though I don't trust him. But
right, he says things we want to hear. Same thing with Max Kaiser to some degree.
I do trust Max Kaiser more than Michael Saylor, but yeah. But these are just people, right? I mean, why should we care what they are saying, or Elon Musk or Trump? Or,
I believe Michael Saylor believes in Bitcoin. I believe that he's into it. And he's invested a lot into.
It just seems like what we're pointing to is,
why is he an authority?
It seems like, the brain is a cognitive miser, and it seems like for the most part, whether people realize they're doing it or not, for the most part, they're outsourcing their opinions to a safe influencer. And it's also this kind of idea of maintaining your social relations, because as I admitted, when people say things that I don't agree with, a lot of people I'm around, if you ask them, they'll tell you that I agree with how they look at things.
Yep.
But that's not necessarily the case.
That's
right? We all learn how to have conversations with people and agree with them about things we actually patently
or you just didn't show them disapproval.
Yes, it was a willful omission,
right?
Let's say, you know what I mean? And sometimes I think that in hindsight, I am doing myself and other people a disservice. You know what I mean? And now, at the same time, there are risks to expressing yourself.
Well, that's clearly the thing. Is it's not always clear. Sometimes you got to choose the hill you're going to battle on, right?
Yeah, you don't want to die on the most ratchet hill. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no my relationship with this is my relationship with them worth correcting their opinion right now on this thing that I disagree with.
Correct. Maybe this is we've kind of, the purebloods have to develop their own form of diplomacy.
Diplomacy is how I take everything,
right? It's kind of like
I'm always here's the thing. I have opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them I've come to through a lot of actual consideration.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's correct. And I want to hear more opinions. I want to know what that opinion is. So I don't have to. It's not always. I'm not interested in their opinion just so I can prove them how smart I am about my opinion. And that's part of it too, right? That's why you're diplomatic, because you're looking for more out of it than just stroking your ego.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so for example, in philosophy, you want to aim for the truth. So basically, in aiming for the truth, you sort of acknowledge your humility and your humbleness, and that you don't know the truth. Right? So it's actually a journey together towards the truth. But in many conversations nowadays, it's actually that you already know the truth, and that you're in a battle with the other person to sort of, convey what you know, and you're not interested in what the other person has to say. So that's sort of antithetical to the whole Western notion of philosophy and what got us where we are today.
It's interesting though, like how reality is signal processed like an API, where different people have different data fields in their JSON structure. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like we all have these API feeds. Some people have the CNN, MSNBC RSS feed. Other people have the Rumble RSS feed. And so for any topic or subject, H-1B visas, whatever, people are working from different data structures fundamentally.
True.
And they're pulling different data. And you're like, It's like asking two people who have different APIs what the price of Bitcoin is. Necessarily, they're going to disagree. What I've realized is that what's true for me may only be true for me and not true for anyone else.
Yeah, but that makes it valuable, right? So I think, what I learned from, I'm more of a mental trader, and I believe in mentals. What I learned from is, that basically everything that already inside the chat, right? People like me are already trading Bitcoin or whatever other cryptocurrency. So there is nothing outside of that chart, right? Everything is already incorporated.
I think it's cutting out for me. Is it cutting out for you, Peace?
Yeah, it's a little choppy. I can't quite understand everything.
Sorry, Nick. I'm following what you're saying, but it is a bit choppy. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's because my phone is about to melt down. So I'm gonna switch over.
I think it's the 85%. I think it's the 85%.
Yeah. You're going to switch over?
I think he has to charge